We are a team from Yale University proposing policy for Wisconsin. My name is Patrick Reed.
I'm Daniel Del Bosque.
And I'm Calvin Harrison. The U.S. is the world's second largest producer of carbon dioxide, and at 31% of national emissions, the electricity sector is the largest single contributor to the country's total emissions. Besides making up the largest portion of total carbon emissions, the electricity market's highly centralized, mostly natural monopoly structure makes it an easy target for regulatory oversight and mandated changes. While climate change affects the entire planet, every place will face different impacts. Wisconsin's large agricultural industry makes it particularly susceptible to certain changes. According to a study from the Wisconsin Initiative on Climate Change Impacts, increased CO2 concentrations could increase soybean yields by up to 15%, and longer growing seasons with warmer temperatures could further boost those numbers. Yet that would require large-scale adaptation of growing schedule and other methods by farmers. Without big changes in operations, farms could lose crops. Negative impacts include increased weed growth and disease and fungus spread under higher temperatures, as well as stress to livestock. Changes in rain pattern are also predicted and could lead to crop-killing, drought, or flooding according to different projections. Overall, climate change will increase the volatility and unpredictability of annual cycles, which will negatively affect farm output. Research by Professor David Vassar at Yale strongly demonstrates that temperature variance poses a greater threat than average temperature increases. Climate change will also negatively affect human health, as warmer air facilitates more creation of ozone, causing problems like asthma. Warmer summers and heat waves will increase morbidity and mortality and lower worker productivity. Hotter temperatures will also lead to greater electricity demand for air conditioning, which will stress the aging electricity grid. More intense storms are also a threat to all types of infrastructure. President Obama's Clean Power Plan has set a goal to reduce Wisconsin's total CO2 output to approximately 28 million tons by 2030. This represents a decrease of about 14 million tons of carbon dioxide from 2012 levels. However, this emissions reduction will have to be achieved despite population and GDP growth. Currently, Wisconsin relies heavily on coal for electricity. In 2013, 62% of the state's electricity came from coal, and only 6.9% came from renewables, including biomass, wind, and hydroelectricity. Nuclear power and natural gas also fuel power plants in the state. Wisconsin has the 12th highest electricity prices in the nation, according to the EIA. The main point of contention in the lawsuit against the Clean Power Plan arises from the fact that both the House of Representatives and the Senate passed slightly differing versions of an amendment to the Clean Air Act. Only one of them allows the EPA to enforce all three of its building blocks. Scott Walker's main concern is that the costs of building blocks 2 and 3 of the CPP will be financially unmanageable and will result in higher electricity rates and job losses. Additionally, there are fears that coal-fired plants, aging and already submitted to CAA regulations, will come under further stress as a product of double regulations. It is because of this that Scott Walker and Wisconsin's Attorney General Brad Schmiel claim that the EPA is wielding powers it does not have, especially as it pushes the state to change its energy mix and to switch from coal to gas-fired plants. Our proposal took these political objections as valid and used them to build a politically feasible solution that can still help Wisconsin reach its emissions reductions goal.
The most efficient measures for reducing carbon emissions are carbon taxes, or a system of capping carbon emissions via permits and allowing companies to trade those permits. These measures are not currently politically feasible in Wisconsin, where the political establishment has denied climate change and would be against large government regulation. Carbon sequestration is another way to reduce emissions, but this technology is very expensive and not fully reliable. Because of the huge investment costs and potential for leakage of stored carbon, we have also decided against sequestration. Our proposal, thus, centers on the idea that the goals can still be reached through other, smaller policies that will pass more easily in the current political climate, such as renewable portfolio and efficiency standards. In order to meet Wisconsin's CPP targets, our team proposes a multifaceted wedge approach. First developed by Princeton researchers, the wedge idea is to reduce emissions in a number of ways, each using existing technology and making changes that will have relatively little negative impact on the existing economy. This decentralized approach is the most likely to be palatable to Wisconsin's politicians and electorate. The first wedge of our proposal is a strong renewable portfolio standards program. Renewable portfolio goals were first set in Wisconsin in 1999 In 2005, the state legislature's Act 141 implemented standards to be met by 2015 by awarding renewable energy credits to utilities, which they then trade to reach statewide goals. The goal was to reduce 10% of the state's electricity from renewables by the end of 2015, but projections from 2014 predict that the state only reached 7% renewable electricity. We propose to build off of this program and set standards of 30% renewable generation by 2030, an increase of around 25 percentage points from 2012. Neighboring states have set goals of 25% by 2025, so this is a very reasonable target. These standards include traditional renewables like solar and wind, as well as other technologies such as hydropower, biomass, biogas, and others. One renewable technology that holds promise for Wisconsin is biogas. Biogas consists of approximately 60% methane and 40% carbon dioxide, and is created by the anaerobic digestion of waste and/or biomass. Anaerobic digestion technology is simple and can easily be done on site by farmers who can use manure and other farm wastes. Biogas can be used the same as natural gas for on-site heating and electricity generation, or can be purified and added to the natural gas distribution system. The leftover digestate can then be used as fertilizer and is often more valuable than undigested manure because it is easier to spread and no longer produces unpleasant odor. In this way, biogas provides a simple, decentralized approach to renewable energy. It also provides income to farmers who sell electricity, heat, or biogas back to the grid, or sell their digestate as fertilizer. This additional income stream builds climate resilience for farmers. This technology is feasible and beneficial to farmers. The chart on the right shows how a biogas and generator system on a farm in Oregon will pay itself off in less than 5 years. The greenhouse gas mitigation benefits from biogas are twofold, because biogas burns cleaner than coal and also prevents methane emissions from manure. Methane's global warming potential is roughly 20 times that of carbon dioxide according to the IPCC, so reducing methane emissions has huge impacts on total greenhouse gas contributions. We propose that Wisconsin secure a CEIP grant to establish a revolving loan fund that will coordinate low-cost financing for farm biogas, which additionally benefits low-income communities. Wind and solar are more traditional renewable energies that are also important for Wisconsin. Although Wisconsin doesn't necessarily have a competitive advantage in either technology, a study by the Wisconsin Environment Research and Policy Center found that 75% of Wisconsin's energy could be provided by wind power alone. A gradual growth in wind and solar power can play an important part in reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the state. The most immediate effects of renewable infrastructure is the capital cost of installation. However, when the levelized cost of energy, which takes into account capital, fuel, maintenance, and operations expenses, is taken into account, renewables like wind can be far cheaper than fossil fuels. Another primary impact is the creation of jobs for building and maintaining the new systems. The secondary impacts of new renewable infrastructure include better health due to less air pollution, an increase in support for renewable infrastructure as more people are involved in the industry, and an increase in rural land values because renewable infrastructure needs open land.
A variety of technologies can improve the efficiency of the electric grid. After a series of blackouts in '97, state legislators banded together to increase generation sources and grid infrastructure, resulting in Act 141 from 2005. 3 technologies can improve grid efficiency. These are the examples: high voltage transition, investing in two-way transmission, and smart grid technology. For long distance, transmission operates at high voltages. From physics, losses decrease by the square of voltage, so 10 times higher voltage decreases losses by 100 times. Wisconsin is already constructing more high voltage highways. Two-way transmission is crucial for expanding distributed renewable energy generation. At its inception, the grid was designed with concentrated plants in mind, taking energy from remote locations to people in one direction. Currently, renewable energy can only be shared on the distribution grid, which means, for example, residential solar generation in a suburb can only be used within that suburb's local grid. This causes inefficiencies with large renewable installations if more generation is produced in an area than is needed for demand locally, a problem that especially plagues biogas and wind generation in rural areas. A step-up transformer is needed to bring that capacity back to the high-voltage highways, which Wisconsin has already begun to implement. The smart grid refers to a host of technologies that digitize usage data in real time. With data, grid operators can more effectively optimize electric distribution. Second, the private market can integrate smart electric appliances to optimize efficiency in real time. Smart meters synergize with two-way transmission because they provide grid operators real-time information on distributed renewable energy generation, which the operators currently lack, instead relying on sophisticated estimations. We propose Wisconsin apply for a CEIP grant for a revolving loan fund for utilities to implement smart meter technology across the state, following in the footsteps of California and Texas. This structure would allow state officials to match loans to utilities where especially high renewable energy generation is expected. The U.S. Electric Power Research Institute estimates that over 20 years, national implementation of smart metering would cost $400 billion, but achieve benefits over $1.3 trillion. Decoupling is another key part of improving the grid efficiency. Decoupling realigns utility incentives away from maximizing throughput by changing the regulatory structure from a fixed price to a fixed revenue schema. The 2008 American Recovery and Reinvestment Act pushed for decoupling. Major utilities began decoupling in December 2008, such as the Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, and this transition is under the purview of local regulators, not the state legislature or governor. So our proposal is Wisconsin energy officials personally advocate to and work to facilitate transition to decoupling statewide. Traditionally, coal plants run around 35% efficiency of input to output, while advanced technologies can bring them to 60%. Many technologies exist. Here are two examples: supercritical pulverized coal and combined cycle generation. A large portion of coal plants already use pulverized coal, which maximizes the volume of fuel in the furnace. Supercritical or ultra-supercritical improvements allow boilers to operate at such high pressures that the water is no longer steam, but supercritical fluid, removing the turbulence, which increases operating efficiency. Combined cycle generation refers to implementing heat recovery systems that convert waste heat from primary generators into usable energy that secondary generators can capture. Implementing combined cycle technology is huge. Alone, in many case studies, it increases efficiency by 10% in a plant. To implement coal efficiency technology, we propose Wisconsin implement a revolving loan fund that provides coal plants with low-cost financing for these improvements. This free market solution will have the positive political benefits of including the coal industry in the statewide clean energy transition. Currently, these improvements aren't in place because the marginal cost of improvements doesn't outweigh the marginal revenue from more efficient production. But by reducing the cost of financing, we can lower the marginal cost and shift the curve such that the coal plants want to optimize profits at higher levels of efficiency. Our final wedge is demand-side energy efficiency through Energy Efficiency Resource Standards. These programs are state mandates for utility companies to implement consumer demand reduction initiatives such as education campaigns. Current Energy Efficiency Resource Standards programs reduce demand in Wisconsin annually by 0.77%. Their program is 17th in the nation based on size, so there's still a lot of room to grow. A Frontier Group report found that in the manufacturing sector alone, over 25% of consumption could be reduced by efficiency improvements. We propose Wisconsin strengthen its EERS program to reach a goal of 20% efficiency increased from 2012 levels by 2030. A program like this would save consumers money by reducing their monthly electricity bills. The fossil fuel economy is going through large changes right now, regardless of government policy. As new technologies allow for more drilling, storage, and shipment of natural gas, its price has fluctuated greatly. In the 2015 EIA Outlook depicted, natural gas generation is expected to grow while coal declines. Wisconsin has a large amount of natural gas electricity generation infrastructure that is currently underutilized, so the state's utility companies could move to burn more natural gas in the coming years. To account for the uncertainty in the future of natural gas, our model sensitivity analyses account for varying levels of coal to gas transition. Using a simple model, we have come up with 3 different scenarios to reach the emissions reductions goal set forward by the Clean Power Plan. They are each composed of a combination of different policy tools that together make up stabilization wedges. The first of these scenarios is the most effective with the biggest reductions in emissions, exceeding the goal of this Clean Power Plan by 27%. In this scenario, 25% of Wisconsin's coal power plants are replaced by natural gas. 11% of the emissions come from this transition. In the next scenario, only an eighth of coal-fired plants switch, but emissions reduction goals are still met. Finally, considering that the transition from coal to gas is one of the most contested issues by Governor Walker, we have made it a point in our proposal to show that the Clean Power Plan goal can still be achieved even without it. In this last scenario, the difference is offset by increasing the efficiency of coal plants without affecting the fuel mix of any of Wisconsin's existing plants. This scenario reaches 100% of the Clean Power Plan's goal. Thank you.